They said it was a healing trip. That's the word Mom used. Healing. Said it like it was a sales pitch. Let's go back to nature. Just the four of us. We need this. She smiled too wide when she said it, like someone trying to sell a used car with a cracked windshield. I'm not sure why I agreed. Maybe because I wanted to believe we were fixing something. Maybe because I was tired of pretending we didn't need fixing at all. Or maybe I still wanted someone in that family to look at me the way Grandpa Ezra used to. I'm telling this from a hospital bed, left wrist bandaged, left side bruised from shoulder to ankle, a gash just above my eyebrow that throbs like it has its own heartbeat. But that's not the pain that stayed with me. What stayed was the moment I realized the rope wasn't the only thing they cut. We were halfway up the ridge, me, Mom, Jones, and that family friend with the polite smile and silence that always meant he was in on something. The air was crisp, early autumn clinging to the mountains like it didn't want to let go. I slipped once. Not a big slip, just enough for the harness to jerk. I laughed it off, tried to act like I wasn't rattled, but my gloves were damp with sweat. I remember asking, "You guys good up there?" My voice echoed. Nobody answered. Then came the whisper. "She's too far down. We'll fall trying to save her. Cut the rope." It was my mother's voice. I stopped breathing, thought I'd heard wrong. Until I saw Jones glance back at me, expressionless. Not panicked, not even unsure. Just done. Then tension snapped. It wasn't my weight or gravity. It was a clean slice. Deliberate. I fell. Branches clawed my arms. My face scraped against rock. When I landed on a narrow ledge, I couldn't move at first, couldn't scream, just stared at the sky, listening for footsteps or voices. But there was nothing, just the wind and the sound of betrayal ringing in my ears. I don't know how long I was out, long enough for the sky to go from blue to black. When I came to, my left side screamed every time I tried to shift. Blood crusted above my eye. My mouth was dry, my tongue like sandpaper. I reached for my bag, half empty, no flare, no energy bar, just a half bottle of water and a pair of gloves that weren't mine, no signal on my phone. I managed to stand, slow, painful, every breath a negotiation. Made my way down the slope, step by careful step. When I reached the base, the van was gone. In its place, a burned-out fire pit. And a note, scribbled on torn paper, half buried in dirt. "We thought you left." That was it. No name, no explanation, not even an attempt at a lie. I laughed. Out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was so pathetic, so careless, that it almost made me forget I was bleeding. That night, I didn't sleep. Just piled some branches into a crooked lean-to and curled beneath it like a wounded animal. My fingers found the rope bracelet Grandpa gave me when I was 12. Said it was made from the first cord he ever climbed with. I held it like it was a lifeline. Maybe it was. "If this is where I die," I whispered, "at least let the truth die with me." But I didn't die. I lived to remember. And memory. Memory is dangerous when you've been told to forget. All through the night, memories clawed at me. Mom brushing my hair after school. Jones sneaking me peanut butter cups under the dinner table. Sunday mornings with pancakes and no arguments. Were they ever real, or just well-rehearsed lies dressed up as love? I used to think forgiveness was the end goal, a place you arrived at after processing everything. But maybe forgiveness was just a trick, something they used to keep me quiet. Maybe silence wasn't peace. Maybe it was practice, for disappearing me altogether. Just before dawn, I stood again. My knees shook. My head buzzed with thirst. But I made it to the trail, wobbling like a drunk through thorny brush, and that's when I saw him. A man in a yellow windbreaker, looking at his phone, startled when he spotted me. "Oh God," he said, rushing over. "You okay? Hey. I nodded. Or I think I did. My lips didn't move, my legs folded. Before I hit the ground, I heard him say, "Calling 911 now. Just hang on." And in the blur between light and blackout, I had one last thought. If they thought cutting the rope would end me, they forgot one thing. The hospital let me out on a Tuesday morning. No balloons, no flowers, just the discharge paperwork and a ride from a nurse who felt sorry enough to call me a cab. When I stepped back into my apartment, it felt like I was breaking into someone else's life. No one had checked on me. No voicemail from my mother, no text from Jones, not even a spam email from the family company wishing me a speedy recovery. There was, however, a neatly folded invoice in my mailbox for the ambulance ride I never asked for. I spent that night on the couch, still half-dressed in clothes I hadn't worn in days. My legs ached. My ribs caught fire every time I moved, but none of that compared to what I felt when I called the insurance company. "I'm sorry, Miss Vale," the rep said politely. "Your policy was deactivated 3 months ago. You were listed as non-dependent and non-employee." There wasn't even a pause. No hesitation in her voice. Just another script in a list of thousands. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just a fall. This was prearranged absence. They had planned for a version of the future that didn't include me in it. And they did it quietly, like people taking down a photo before guests arrive. You're not abandoned when they forget you. You're abandoned when they prepare for your absence. I thought about therapy. I thought about how badly I needed to talk to someone. Then I looked at the balance in my checking account and closed the browser. Some people pay to be heard. Others just learn to be quiet. The quiet didn't last long. Late that night, I was lying in bed, scrolling through social media like it might offer me a distraction. What I got instead was a punch to the chest. Photos, dozens of them. A resilience renewal backyard celebration, bright string lights, matching outfits, paper lanterns shaped like butterflies. My family smiling wide enough to hide anything. There was Jones, glass raised high. "There's no such thing as a perfect family," he said in the video. "But ours, we're proof that love wins when you fight for it." Someone off camera laughed and shouted, "Cheers to that!" I froze on a group picture. There were 10 chairs around the long table. One had a tiny dog perched on it, dressed in a red bow tie. My chair, my literal, physical seat, had been replaced by a Shih Tzu with a tongue too big for its mouth. They hadn't even used the excuse that I was sick or couldn't attend. I wasn't mentioned at all. Not in the comments, not in the captions, not even as a footnote. If you're never named, you're not missed. And if you're not missed, were you ever truly theirs? I picked up the phone, dialed my mother. Voicemail. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just said, "I saw the pictures. Thank you for making your silence official." Then I hung up. The next morning, I emailed the HR rep from the family business, asking to confirm what the insurance company had told me. And a few hours later, I got this. As part of our quarterly compliance update, all inactive members were phased out of the company insurance plan. You were categorized as inactive per family request. That word, inactive, rattled something loose in me. I remembered once, a year ago, Mom telling me, "You don't really participate in this family. You kind of float around, like smoke, like something she didn't mind disappearing." I Googled myself, my full name. No employee listing, no company blog entries, no foundation records, just a 10-year-old blog post about sibling dynamics that I'd written and long since forgotten. People don't write you out of history by accident. They do it because it makes their story prettier. I logged into the billing portal, wanted to see if I could at least file a claim for my hospital expenses, and that's when the last little cut came. The entire trip, van rental, permits, gear, insurance policy, guide deposit, had been prepaid under my name. My old company credit profile had been used, tied to my personal tax ID. There was even a legal disclaimer attached. Failure to respond to injury claims may result in personal liability. The hospital's billing coordinator confirmed it plainly. "You're the primary on the travel liability waiver," she said, "signed and submitted digitally from your account. I don't remember doing that, which means someone else had access, or someone else made it look like I did. They didn't just cut me off. They made sure I was the one holding the bag." I stared at my screen so long I forgot where I was. Sometime after 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "Just stop. No one believes your side." I didn't reply. I read it, then read it again, then saved it. They want silence, but silence is just noise no one dared to label. I spent 2 full days avoiding the file, the one marked GoPro Backup, tucked in its own folder on my desktop like it might burn if clicked too fast. I don't know why I waited. Maybe because part of me still hoped I'd misheard. But when I finally played it, there was no room for misinterpretation. The timestamp ran just under 38 seconds. In the audio, I heard boots crunching gravel, laughter, low, brief. Then my mother's voice, calm as a Sunday morning. She won't make it. And if she does, she won't have a place here anyway. The words didn't echo. They landed solid, cold, like someone had dropped a metal wrench on concrete. Jones didn't respond, at least not out loud. But the camera caught the moment he glanced over his shoulder. A nod, not wide, not theatrical, just enough, like checking off a task. I paused the clip, backed it up, played it again. Same line, same nod. It wasn't shock I felt. It was proof. Something I could hold when no one else would believe me, something they didn't expect me to survive long enough to retrieve. I copied the file, stored it on 2 external drives, 1 flash, named the folder, Insurance for the Uninsured, because that's what I was now. Uninsured, unspoken for, but not unprepared. Later that week, I logged into the family company's intranet, Vale Legacy Enterprises, the same portal I used to submit reports and internal wellness updates. My login didn't work. I tried password recovery. No such user found. So I did what any former employee with a still legal last name would do. I called IT and told them I was having trouble accessing my profile. The guy on the line was polite, hesitant. After a pause that stretched longer than necessary, he said, "There's no record of your employment, Miss Vale. Nothing in active or archived databases." He didn't sound surprised, just sad. Or maybe tired. I hung up and didn't scream. Didn't curse. I opened the company's website, went to the Our Story section. The mental health campaign I spent 3 months designing, billed under my name, with my quotes, my statistics, was now presented as Jones Vale's initiative. New branding, same structure. My name nowhere in sight. I wasn't just erased. I was absorbed. Like they'd taken the best parts of me, sanitized them, and pasted them on a version of the family I never got to live in. 2 days later, I drove to the cemetery. Grandpa Ezra's headstone was just how I remembered it. Simple, clean, the carving still crisp from the last time I stood there. I didn't cry. I talked. "They took me out of the company, Grandpa," I said. "They removed me from payroll, from the foundation website, from the family photo archives, but they forgot one thing. You never did." I crouched down, pulled out the flash drive, sealed in a plastic bag, dug a small hole at the base of the stone and tucked it in. "If they come for me again," I said quietly, "they'll be standing on your name to do it." When I got home, the house felt smaller, like it was shrinking to match whatever space they'd left for me in their world. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through old screenshots of company emails and staff charts. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. A direct message. No profile picture. Just a name I didn't recognize. "They replaced you with your own silence," it read. But someone left a copy of the training logs. Attached were files, onboarding documents, policy drafts with my digital signature, and a redacted email thread. "Remove Dalian from all internal databases quietly. Reassign credit to Jones Vale. Align story with external messaging." I didn't blink. I read it twice. Saved it. The sender signed off. They forgot we audit everything. I stared at the screen for a while, letting my hands curl into fists before I let them go. In silence, they thought I was gone. But I was archiving. I opened my laptop, navigated to a folder I had buried 3 levels deep. Public release. Contingency A. I whispered the words out loud. "I don't need revenge. I need receipts." The cursor hovered over the schedule upload button. I didn't click it. Not yet. I didn't expect him to pick up, but he did. Jones answered the call like it was a business meeting, calm, clean, void of emotion. The kind of voice you use when you're already writing the closing paragraph in your head. "I need a straight answer," I said. "Did you know the contracts were signed under my name?" He paused just long enough to register he wasn't surprised. Then he gave me a soft chuckle and said it. "You always made things more complicated than they needed to be. Not, I didn't know. Not, that must be a mistake. Just that. There it was, the phrase that made everything click. That's how they kept me outside the circle. Too emotional, too dramatic, too hard to work with. I was never the black sheep. I was the one they trained to believe she was. I see, I said, jaw tight, hands gripping the phone so hard my fingers cramped. There's a paper trail, he added. But none of it leads back to us. Unless you start talking. A warning. A dare. A line in the sand. I hung up without another word. Then I opened the trip documents again. Reread every line of every clause, each digital signature, each attachment. At first it looked standard, until I reached the payment authorization form, the business account registered under my old LLC, an entity I had created for freelance consulting work nearly 5 years ago and never formally shut down. The tax ID was mine. The email thread showed invoices and forms submitted under D. Vale Consulting. The waiver form for the trip listed me as the event coordinator, along with liability clauses for medical emergencies, travel delays, equipment loss. That wasn't sloppiness. That was strategy. They didn't ask because they knew I wouldn't say no. They didn't warn me because that would have meant accountability. They didn't need my permission, just my predictability. I went back through the email threads, checked the sender metadata. Each document was autofilled with my name, but the content, the wording, none of it sounded like me, legal jargon that Jones was fluent in, smiling through silence. Sometimes, the cleanest lies are written in someone else's handwriting. The next day, I walked into the Bozeman Legal Aid Clinic. It wasn't fancy, just 2 desks, a worn couch, and the smell of burned coffee. I sat down across from a woman named Miss Hendricks and laid out the papers like crime scene evidence. She didn't blink, just nodded as she read. "You've been set up as the legal shield," she said finally. "They built this to collapse on you if anything went sideways, and you wouldn't even see it coming." Options were limited. I could sue, sure, but it would go public. They'd weaponize the media, twist my name into some story about a bitter daughter with a vendetta. And at the end of it, all I'd get was a headline no one would read twice. "I'm not filing anything," I told her. "Yet, I just want the truth to be on record." She slid the papers back and said, "Clarity is its own kind of justice." I went home and drafted a document titled, Notice of Fraudulent Assignment of Liability. I didn't write it with rage. I wrote it with precision. I didn't want revenge. I wanted my name back. I wasn't angry about the fall anymore. I was angry about the choice they made to bet on my silence because it had always paid off. My memory drifted back to a meeting from a decade ago. I had been in my early 20s. Dad and Joan sat across from me in the conference room discussing a marketing campaign. I offered a correction, a factual one. Dad smiled, leaned back in his chair and said, "Let your brother do the talking. You're too emotional for numbers." I didn't argue. I didn't walk out. I smiled, stayed quiet, and took notes I was never going to read again. That was the moment I stopped being a participant and became a placeholder. When they dismiss you long enough, they stop fearing your voice, but they forgot something. Silence isn't absence. Sometimes it's ammunition. I printed 3 copies of the notice, one for me, one for Miss Hendricks, and the last, still blank on the envelope, still sealed. I held it for a minute, feeling its weight in my palm. Let's see who's the first to flinch. The knock came just before midnight. I hadn't been expecting anyone. I wasn't dressed for guests, and I hadn't spoken aloud in hours, but there it was, 3 slow taps on wood, followed by one quick one, like someone trying to announce themselves, but not wake the neighbors. I opened the door and found him standing there, top and pike, the guide from the mountain, the one who smiled too politely, said too little, and kept his distance when things got quiet. He looked different, thinner, eyes more tired than I remembered. "I shouldn't be here," he said first, "but I've been carrying this long enough." He handed me a small flash drive, not making eye contact. "You didn't get this from me," he added, "but you deserve to hear it." Inside, in the dim light of the kitchen, I plugged the drive into my laptop. The file was short, 27 seconds long. Warnos's voice came through, crystal clear. "If she doesn't come back, we move forward stronger." No hesitation. No fear, just strategy, spoken like a plan reviewed more than once. I didn't cry. He stood by the counter, arms crossed, looking like a man trying not to puke. "I should have said something back then," he mumbled. "But I've failed people before, people who went missing, whose names no one remembered. I didn't offer forgiveness, didn't say anything noble, but I understood." When people don't help, I said, it's not always because they don't care. Sometimes they just don't have your courage. He nodded once, then left. The next morning, I drove to the family cabin. Dad's old study hadn't changed much. Same dusty air, same half-burned candles, same collection of legal thrillers he never finished. I sifted through drawers, folders, index tabs. Most of it was junk, receipts, birthday cards from clients, emails printed for no reason. But at the bottom of the third drawer, wrapped in a yellowed envelope, was my name, Dalian. His handwriting, sharp, cold. I opened it and pulled out a letter titled, "Had You Been Anyone Else?" That was the moment I knew. He wrote, "You've always been different, sensitive, questioning. You analyze too much, you hold on too long." Then the line that stopped my breath. "Had you been stronger, you'd be beside your brother now. But I couldn't risk the weakness." No signature, no goodbye, just silence. I folded the letter, slowly, placed it back inside the envelope. My hands didn't tremble. But my mouth? It stayed shut longer than it needed to. That night, back at the apartment, I played the audio file from Toppin again. Then again. Then again. Each time, her voice chipped away at the doubt I hadn't realized was still hanging on. I opened the release plan document on my laptop. The cursor blinked, the screen glowed, but I couldn't type. My reflection in the dark window beside me showed a version of me I didn't recognize. Hollow cheeks, eyes that hadn't slept right in days. The kind of woman you'd walk past in a store and never look at twice. They weren't killing me. I was doing that myself, one unspoken truth at a time. I remembered a friend from college. She once told me, "When you get quiet, you get dangerous, to yourself." She was right. I wrote 3 words in my notebook. No more hush. Then I crossed them out. Wrote again. No more protection. The next morning, I walked to the courthouse, not to file anything. I just sat there, in the hallway, watching people walk in with manila folders and come out with verdicts, settlements, restraining orders, relief. I pulled out my journal and titled the next page, "If This Were Happening to Someone Else." I listed every piece of evidence, timeline, names, quotes, attachments, images. I pretended it wasn't mine, that I was a friend giving advice. By the time I finished, I realized it wasn't just a case file. It was an obituary for the person they thought I still was. No one ever taught me how to fight back, but I've always known how to survive. And sometimes, that's the sharper weapon. That night, at home, I created a new cloud folder, named it, "If I Disappear." I uploaded the audio, the letter, the scanned contracts, my medical bills, the HR replies, everything. Then I opened a fresh email. To jones@valuelegacy.com. Subject, "You might want to watch this." Body, "What do you think the world will do with your mother's voice?" I stared at the send button, didn't press it, not yet. The video popped up while I was eating toast. That's how it happens now. You're just trying to exist, slice of bread, cup of coffee, and the internet reminds you of what you're not supposed to be watching. A clip from a local Parenting Resilience Summit. My mother was the keynote speaker. The title beneath her name read, "Author, Advocate, Mother of 2 Resilient Sons." 2? She stood at the podium, poised, polished, smile tight enough to cut glass. "My youngest son once told me," she began, voice soft like she was reading bedtime stories to strangers, "that when the world tries to erase you, you just write louder." I dropped my toast. That wasn't something a son had said. That was mine. I wrote that in a notebook when I was 12, after a teacher told me I talked too much in class. I told Grandpa, and he said, "That's a girl worth keeping close." I wrote it down, word for word. And now, my mother had taken it, repackaged it, and handed it to a room full of people who nodded like disciples. They didn't just want me gone, they wanted evidence I never belonged in the first place. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the laptop. I hit pause, screenshotted the clip, and saved it into a folder I labeled, "My Ghost File." That afternoon, I went to the public library. I asked for access to the submitted waiver files from the guided climb. The librarian hesitated, but once I mentioned legal review and personal medical risk, she led me to a computer. I pulled up 2 versions of the waiver. One was mine. One was the general template issued by the climb operator. My version was missing a section. Bold font on the original. Protocol for solo injury rescue. Emergency contact. Signal device activation. Location beacon steps. Gone from mine. Just gone. I printed both. Brought them to the ranger station nearby. The man behind the counter looked over the forms, flipped them a few times, then said flatly, "That omission wasn't an accident." I nodded. "Didn't think it was." "If someone wants to help you survive," he added, "they give you tools, not silence." I walked out carrying both documents, one in each hand, paper truths, visible intent. Back at home, I laid out everything I had: screenshots, receipts, emails, photos, the audio files, the waiver copies. I started assigning labels: reassigned identity, legal trap, erasure by event, omission as consent. I wasn't collecting evidence anymore. I was writing a story, one they didn't get to author. I booked a legal consult online, 30 minutes, virtual. The woman, maybe early 40s, read through the summary and nodded slowly. "This wouldn't win you a court case," she said, "but it would definitely win you the comment section." I smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was true. "I'm not chasing punishment," I told her. "I'm chasing the end of pretending." That night, I started drafting a statement, just for me, titled it, "The Day My Name Was Taken." I didn't know if I'd ever publish it, but it felt better to write it than to keep repeating it in my head like a bad song. Later, by the fireplace in the cabin, I pinned my grandfather's old rope bracelet to the corkboard above my desk. Next to it, I pinned the transcript of Mom's speech. No music played, no dramatic lighting, just me. Candlelight. Silence. If they wanted a memory to die, they should have picked someone who didn't memorize everything. I read the opening paragraph of my statement aloud, just to hear what my truth sounded like outside my skull. I only cracked once, not out of fear, out of certainty. "I wasn't the problem," I said softly. "I was the placeholder they wanted to remove cleanly." An email pinged on my phone. Subject: Vale Foundation, Gala, Family Legacy. Night I opened it. No greeting, no personal note, just an invite. My name wasn't on the guest list, not as a speaker, not even in the RSVP code. Someone had copied me on the back-end list by mistake. I smiled. "Good," I whispered. "They don't see me coming." The package was small enough to fit inside my mailbox, but the weight of it hit my chest like a brick. I didn't order anything. No return label, no warning. It was a signed copy of my mother's new book, The Unmothered Years. She'd been promoting it for months now, appearing on local podcasts, offering half-truths wrapped in poetic trauma. Inside the front cover, her handwriting stared back at me. "Sometimes we must tell the truth others are too afraid to voice." I flipped to the first page, then the second, then the third. By page 12, I stopped breathing for a second. I used to stare at the ceiling and imagine disappearing. That was mine, word for word, written in a leather-bound journal I kept under my mattress when I was 14. I remembered the exact ink color. The night I wrote it, I had told no one, except maybe Grandpa Ezra, years later. Line after line, it kept happening. My pain, stylized, my sadness, repackaged, all printed beneath her name. She hadn't just stolen my journal, she turned it into a business model. I scanned the back page. No acknowledgement, no footnote, no daughter. Just a bestseller sticker and her face, softer than reality ever allowed. I didn't throw the book. I photographed it. Stored the pictures in the same folder where I kept every receipt, every waiver, every digital trail of their selective memory. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted proof I was never there to begin with. Later that evening, I was washing dishes when my phone rang. The name on the screen made me pause. Quinn. My cousin. We hadn't spoken in years. Her voice was quiet, controlled. "There's something I think you should know," she said. "There's a media team prepping stories. If you say anything, they're ready. They'll call you unstable, say it's grief, old wounds, that you're bitter." So that was the strategy. I didn't say anything. Just waited. Quinn added, "They're not treating you like family. They're treating you like fallout." That was the truth I needed. "Did you ever believe me?" I asked. There was a silence so heavy I thought the line had gone dead. Then she said, "It's not about belief. It's about who they think deserves to be heard." "You can scream," I said, "and they'll say you're unhinged. Or you can go quiet and they'll say you never mattered. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be, I replied. Just know this, I'll make sure my truth is too loud for them to spin. The next day, I walked into an independent bookstore on Main Street, found a staff member, and handed her the copy of my mother's book. I'd like to donate this anonymously, I said. Then I slid a printout between the pages, a typed note that read, "This story belongs to someone who was never asked permission." That night, I sat at my desk and opened a private Medium account. I titled the first draft, "The Words She Stole From Me." I didn't publish it, just typed, deleted, rewrote. Read it aloud, made a voice recording, scripted a video essay, cut stock footage, stared at the playhead, pressed pause. There's a kind of silence, I recorded into the mic. That doesn't mean peace. It just means no one's ready for the storm. Then I saved the file and closed the tab. Elena messaged me that evening. She used to be my college roommate, now a librarian in Portland. Saw your mom's interview, she wrote. I swear, I remember you writing that line on a sticky note on your mirror back in school. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. You did, I typed back. I wasn't crazy. Never thought you were. Elena offered to host a quiet reading event, said it might help. Just for closure, she called it. I don't want closure, I replied. I want reflection. I pulled out my scanned pages, read each one, labeled them by year, color-coded by emotion. And there it was, a pattern I never wanted to see. Even when they didn't read me, they copied me. They took my sadness, my shame, my confusion, turned it into a campaign, a character, a commodity. They weaponized my softness because they assumed I'd never use it back, but they forgot that silence doesn't equal surrender. I opened the final draft again, changed the title. The only thing they raised was their voices over mine. Then I hovered my mouse over publish. Not yet. Let them celebrate first. Let. I parked 3 blocks away, not because I had to, not because they'd stop me at the door. They wouldn't dare. I just needed a moment before walking into a building that was filled with people who clapped at stories they helped erase. The Vail Foundation Gala was held at the community hall, renovated, overpriced, overdecorated. I wore a black dress. Simple. No jewelry. No makeup except for eyeliner sharp enough to say I wasn't there to blend in. Nobody asked for my name at the entrance. Nobody looked me in the eye. I walked in like I belonged, because technically I did. And they knew it. That's why nobody stopped me. Inside, I grabbed a program from the table by the door. My name wasn't on it, of course, but Jones and Warnos, front and center. Honoring legacy, celebrating healing. It read like satire. I didn't smile. They erased me from the guest list, I thought, but I walked in as the footnote they feared. I found a table near the back. Empty, of course. A screen on stage was slowly rotating family photos, slideshow style. And then I saw it, a picture I knew too well, my 25th birthday, taken at the lake house. I'd been sitting between Grandpa Ezra and my mother, but now, I was gone, literally cropped out. The space where I had sat was filled with a translucent logo for the Vail Foundation. It was clean, surgical. They didn't want to act like I died, just that I never existed. Applause erupted as Warnos took the stage, microphone in hand, spotlight perfect, voice steady. Tonight, we honor resilience, she began. And sometimes, that comes after loss. My teeth clenched. She continued. There's a kind of grief that doesn't come from death, but from division. Sometimes, families break. But if you're lucky, you rebuild. Whispers around me. She's talking about her husband, right? I didn't move. I knew exactly who she meant. They rewrote grief so they could bury me without a funeral. Her voice broke just enough to be believable. She dabbed at her cheek with a monogrammed napkin. The room gave her sympathy like it was a gift basket. I watched. I didn't blink. When the applause came, I stood, walked calmly to the media booth, handed the tech a flash drive. For the Ezra Vail tribute, I said, please play this right after the keynote. He nodded. I walked away before he could ask anything else. The lights dimmed, a piano played softly. Photos of Grandpa Ezra began, fishing, holding babies, shaking hands. I almost forgot what was coming. Then it happened. Her voice. If she doesn't come back, We moved forward stronger, loud, clear, familiar. The audio echoed through the room. Gasps, murmurs. On screen, beneath the waveforms of her voice, appeared the text. Audio recorded pre-accident. Consent not granted. Warnos froze. A twitch of her jaw. A pause too long. Nobody clapped. No one knew where to look. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked out. No one stopped me. Outside, the air hit harder than expected. Cold, sharp, honest. Behind me, I could hear raised voices. Jones yelling, tech crew fumbling, people whispering. A woman's voice called out, hesitant. "Miss Vale?" I turned. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know." I nodded once. "That's because you were never meant to." I kept walking. Past the parked cars, past the glow of the building. No victory dance, just silence. When the truth lands loud enough, you don't have to shout it again. Back at the apartment, I poured a glass of water, sat at my desk, posted one photo to my profile. Me, standing at the back of the gala, shadowed by chandeliers. Caption: uninvited, unforgotten. I closed the app, then noticed the envelope on my doormat. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single printed screenshot, a digital calendar with Warnos's name on top. 900 a.m. Crisis PR session, private. Underneath it, a sticky note. "They're coming. Are you ready?" I didn't call ahead. I didn't dress up. I just walked into my mother's office. No knocking, no appointment, no script. She was seated behind her desk, typing something, probably a statement or a spin. When she looked up, her face cracked for the first time in years. "You're still alive?" she said. Not in shock, not in relief, just surprise. Like I'd come back from a trip I was never supposed to return from. I didn't flinch. "Don't fix it now," I told her. "You already made it perfect the first time." Her mouth opened, ready to soften the damage, but I didn't give her the space. I pulled an envelope from my coat pocket and set it gently on her desk. It was sealed, labeled, certified, everything she used to teach me about documents with teeth. Timeline, witnesses, recordings. This isn't a threat, it's a confirmation. I stood there a second longer, long enough for her to realize the one thing she'd lost: control. "I'm not here for closure," I said. "I'm here, so you know. I saw it all." Then I left. Back home, the air was colder than usual, even inside. Snow clung to the window in soft patches. A box sat by the door, no label, no sender. Inside, a necklace, silver, simple. On the back of the pendant, tiny coordinates were engraved. The card read, "I tried to send this for your birthday 10 years ago. It came back marked not at this address. I never tried again." It was from David, my college boyfriend, the one they told had moved on, the one I never heard from again. But he hadn't disappeared. They'd blocked him. That year, I'd waited for a phone call, made a cake, told myself everyone was just busy, that silence wasn't a message. It was, they hadn't just shut me out. They shut out anyone who could have loved me differently than they did. I held the necklace up to the window, let the light catch it. There was no rage in me anymore, just clarity. That's what regret becomes when it stops asking for company. Later that evening, I logged into my Medium account. The draft was still there. I was the rope they cut. I didn't add hashtags, didn't open comments. I just hit publish. "This is not a testimony," I wrote. "This is a weather report. The storm came and went. I'm just the one who walked through it." It didn't go viral, but it didn't need to. People found it, quietly, in inboxes, through DMs. Strangers wrote, "I see you." Others just wrote, "Thank you." Warnos never responded publicly. Jones went radio silent. That was enough. I didn't do it for headlines. I did it for the girl who clung to a ledge with bleeding palms and a broken voice, still hoping to be pulled back up. I owed her that much. A week later, I invited a few friends over, people who knew the quiet parts of me. I read a line from a new piece. "Legacy is not inherited. It is rewritten." I took Grandpa Ezra's rope bracelet and placed it into a shadow box. Underneath it, I taped a label. Not forgotten. Someone asked if I ever planned to speak to my family again. I smiled. "I already did," I said, just not with words they wanted to hear. The night ended early. I didn't stay for the wine or the laughter. I walked home under snowfall, the kind that lands slow enough to listen to. The necklace sat cold against my collarbone, tucked beneath my coat. The next morning, I opened the window and let the mountain air in, fresh, sharp, real. I didn't burn the bridge, I whispered. I just stopped walking back to it. Pinned to my front door was a single note. No name. Just handwriting I didn't recognize. Thank you for surviving out loud. No signature.